A top figure skater has announced her departure from Eteri Tutberidze's group. All these stories end the same way. They leave a group with a strong rival, in this case, Trusova. But that's just my opinion. I don't know the internal situation. I'm just making a logical assumption, said Alexander Julin. Russian figure skating has been rocked. Adelia Petrosyan has left Eteri Tutberidze's group. This isn't a guess or a rumor, but an announcement from the skater herself, the leader of the national team last season, and a participant in the 2026 Olympics. This decision was not easy for me. I am leaving my coaching staff. A huge thank you to Eteri Georgievna, Daniil Markovich Glakingos, and Sergei Viktorovich Dudikov for the path we've traveled together. Thank you for the amazing programs, for all our victories, and the tremendous experience I gained alongside you. I have endless respect for you and appreciate everything you've done for me. May all be well for you and your athletes. Alena Vaitsekovskaya. The current Trusova looks like a much more valuable asset to Tutberidze than Petrosyan. Exhausted by the Olympic season. When an athlete changes coaches, there can be many reasons, and they all boil down to one definition. They've become uncomfortable. It's unlikely that the concept of comfort is even applicable to Tutberidze's group, especially since the coach herself constantly emphasizes that she doesn't make allowances for her players' titles, injuries, or moods. However, in the long line of predecessors, Petrosyan stands apart. Let's start with the fact that for a long time, she wasn't considered a potential star. There were always much more muscular girls around, and Adelia didn't look particularly attractive. The figure skating world had yet to discover that this young athlete possessed a steely character, truly ideal for the sport. However, her diminutive size and even a certain smallness on the ice were immediately noticeable, perceived more as a flaw. Nevertheless, Petrosyan became the trump card, not to say a lifeline, for her now former coaching staff, which over the past 3 years allowed them to confirm that Tutberidze's championship-winning conveyor belt continued to produce top-notch results. Another issue was that during the Olympic season, injuries and body transformations began to affect the consistency of her performances. It was becoming clear that the skater wasn't progressing, but was struggling to maintain her usual level. In a certain sense, Adelia's tried-and-true tactic of leaving old programs, which demanded absolute emotional engagement for the Olympic season, also worked against her. But what kind of engagement can there be when the jumps start to fall apart? So it turned out that two wonderful performances pale in comparison. In Milan, the skater did everything she could, but the blame for the lack of a medal was still placed on her. This was especially clear in a recent interview with Tutberidze. One theory for the three-time Russian champion's departure from the group is the return of her former student, Alexandra Trusova, to Tutberidze. This could also be true, even during her time working with Evgeny Plushenko, the Beijing Games vice-champion. According to sources close to the academy's leadership, trained mostly on a separate ice rink, this was one of the conditions of her contract. In other words, Sasha would hardly have agreed to renew her collaboration with Tutberidze without negotiating exclusive rights. It's quite clear that the current Trusova is a far more valuable asset to her coach than Petrosyan. Exhausted by the Olympic season, Sasha has already passed puberty, is jumping quads, and is quite capable of becoming the first truly mature figure skater at Tutberidze's school to achieve results, partly dispelling the long-held belief that the staff is only good at working with little girls. So it's hardly surprising that every specialist, without exception, will be focused on preparing the quad queen this season, Vaitsekovskaya wrote in her RT column. Yes, Petrosyan has been clearly separated from her group work for several months. In April, she appeared at a show with Tutberidze's team. A couple of days ago at the K-Fest with Glakingos, and that's it. There's been no sign of serious preparation for the season, despite receiving neutral status. Journalist Vladislav Zhukov elaborates. Adelia Petrosyan enrolled in the ballet mastering department at GITIS and planned to focus on her studies. According to my information, before leaving Eteri Tutberidze, the skater wasn't actively preparing for the season and attended about 1 or 2 practices per week. She had previously been nursing a hip injury during the off-season. In the figure skating community, it was expected that Adelia might skip the upcoming season or significantly reduce her competitive schedule. No one expected her to leave Tutberidze. Another detail, Adelia never received any programs for the season. There was talk that they were being thought about, but with each passing day, the certainty that they wouldn't happen grew. I get the feeling that the large number of senior athletes on one staff also played a role along with Giddis, the extremely difficult Olympic season, and everything else. It turns out that Eteri Tutberidze is entering the season with Alexandra Trusova, Daria Sadkova, Sofia Akateva, and Dina Kusnetdinova, and it's completely obvious who will be the absolute favorite in the group. Another clarification from Sport24. Petrosyan has not yet chosen a new coach, being more focused on addressing health issues. After a stressful Olympic year, which was also ruined by a leg injury, this is not surprising. And finally, Sport24's information. This is a big surprise for Tutberidze's school, despite Petrosyan's extremely easy schedule and her significant changes in body shape. No other details are available, although they would be helpful from the current team members. Recently, in a long interview, Eteri signaled her willingness to answer any questions and lamented that they weren't being asked. Even the diligent Alexander Ember didn't ask about Petrosyan for some reason. She and Tutberidze were overlooked at the top of their group. 3 gold medals at the Russian Championships are the shared legacy of Petrosyan and Tutberidze. Due to suspensions, it was impossible to add significantly more in these seasons a chance for an Olympic medal arose. But it didn't pan out in Milan's 6th place with a failed quadruple jump. There's no point in guessing what prompted Adelia to leave Eteri, rather than simply skip the season. But judging by the skater and coach's recent comments, it seems they're both a little disappointed in each other. Tutberidze basically chose the refrain, "There are no exceptional talents in the group right now. How can you not take that personally?" Eteri spoke almost with frustration about Petrosyan and her performance in Milan. A feeling of missed opportunities. A feeling that we hadn't fulfilled ourselves. Adele is a real child, and it was as if she didn't understand that this was a huge chance in her life. Perhaps her only one. It was as if no one had explained to her how important this was, that she needed to put in every effort. She's a very emotional girl, and these emotions only grew after the Olympic rosters were announced, and this really interfered with her work. It wasn't normal at all. But, strangely enough, when she returned from the Olympics, I again saw the focused gaze of a girl who understands what they want, and she wants to improve. She wants to succeed. This wasn't there during her preparation. She was completely unfocused. To be fair, Tutberidze also had the message the coaches, couldn't bring Adele to her best. In the spring, Petrosyan discussed quads, their importance, and the changes she'd undergone mentally and physiologically. None of this ever felt like a full-blown conflict, but it certainly seems like everyone was rethinking things after the Milan failure. Once again, a skater from Tutberidze's team who went to the Olympics didn't stay with the group long after her return. Petrosyan turned 19 in June compared to Kamila Valieva and Alexandra Trusova. She's not even the most veteran figure skater in the current Russian skating lineup. 19 is certainly not the end of a career under the current ISU rules and age limit, but it's clear that Adelia's motivation, form, and zeal are currently on the wane, compared to the returning superstars or the 2024 version of herself. Moreover, Trusova is now training at the same rink where Petrosyan was considered the prima just a year ago. Where will Adelia find her place now? At Giddis or on someone else's ice? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching.